Working on the modifications to the air dam now. So the air dam, and I'm underneath the car, mounts to the bottom of the radiator support slash. This is what hits the curb if you pull up a little too close. And so I've removed it from the radiator support. And then what you have to do is the stock hardware that it comes with. And I've taken it all off and kind of bundled it up for safekeeping. You take that off the air dam, and from the kit you take these 4 aluminum brackets and attach them. And this is going to fit right up here underneath the radiator. I just kind of stashed it up here quick. And what I'm going to need to do is drill 4 holes. All right, I have taken and clamped this where it goes, put a little tape between them, and then just taken a little bit of a Sharpie and marked the holes so I can take this. Now I know all the holes are in the right spot. I'll take this off, drill all 4 holes, and bolt her up. Next up was the air filter and air intake system to the supercharger. The little crankcase breather tube down there, that's the insert that goes in the air cleaner. That thing was a bear to get in. I ended up having to taper the threads on that a little bit to make it slide in a little bit easier, but pushed it in with a ton of might and it went in. I'll connect that in a little bit, but we got this fitting, and I think it's fitting low enough for the hood to close without hitting it. I'll put a couple pieces of tape upside down on each one of these and close the hood gently and see if they stick to the hood material or if they stay put. That'll be my test to determine if they're down low enough. I hope they are, because that's about as low as they can go. Part of the project that I thought would take about 10 minutes, it's taken me about 3 hours. For this particular thing, the hole that goes into the oil fill cap, unfortunately the instructions are incorrect, and I went and got the wrong size drill and tapped it out, only to find out this doesn't fit. Turns out it's a 1/2 inch MPT tap and an 11/16 drill bit. Good luck finding an 11/16 drill bit at your Menards, Home Depot, or Fleet Farm. I had to go with a spade bit and just took it really easy with a spade bit. And I found that at Menards. The way I did this helped out a lot as I locked the tap in the vise, and with my hand, because you don't want to break this cap, it's plastic obviously, I put on my thick leather gloves and just kept working it, a little bit of oil. Sometimes I'd get stuck and I couldn't get it off, so I'd wrap a towel around the cap and use my locking plier, or my plumber's pliers, gently to loosen it. And I probably worked on tapping this thing for about a 1/2 hour finally till I got it right. So take your time, use the right size tap, the right size drill, and it'll probably only take you an hour. All right, here's the finished crankcase breather. I don't think it hits the hood. It's close though. I routed it straight down here through this little chamber, just on the inside of the new radiator hole down. And then it comes to the top of the air cleaner and fits onto that fitting. I didn't have to cut any off my hose, so it's about the right length. We'll see how the oil consumption is. Hopefully I don't need a catch can. Time to change out the plugs to, I presume, colder ones. I'm pretty certain. These come in the kit. They call to gap them to 35 thousandths. And I used to have a couple F bodies before this, and let me tell you, once you just take the air hose connection off this side, actually both sides, super easy to change these plugs. If I remember right on the F bodies, these back two were a pain in the butt because they were damn near halfway underneath the cowling that overhung. So not much to see here. Just change all 8 of these out. If you've changed your plugs before, it'll be easy. If it's been 100,000 miles, they might be a little sticky. Some finishing touches here underneath where the wire that plugs into the hood goes. I added some plastic hard sheathing that I had in stock, so wherever it rubs it won't wear through and short out at some point. Also, I did my final adjustments to my intercooler, and there's slight gaps where it meets here. So I just used, and this is not duct tape, it's Gorilla Tape, which I've used the last few years for a variety of things. It's not even in the same league as duct tape, so that'll seal that edge up for at least a few years. Maybe I'll have to replace it in a couple of years. Next thing I'm going to do is put the air dam back on. This is the one that we drilled the holes earlier in this support, and this is the air dam that directs the air, creates high pressure to force the air through the air conditioning condenser and the radiator. So let's get that put on. Getting down to some of the smaller items, a little less labor intense. This is a vacuum hose that's provided in the kit. It runs all the way from that lower right-hand corner where the blow-off valve, if you remember from the video, from the top part of it, there's a vacuum fitting, and you fish that around. I chose to run mine low under the radiator. I didn't want it to be exposed to much heat. I'm just a little worried about if it gets too hot, vacuum hose under vacuum may collapse. I doubt this stuff would, but why risk it? So I routed it low where it'll be a little cooler. Brought it up on this side of the radiator, just kind of fished it through low and wrapped it around here, and I just made the cut a second ago in my vacuum hose for the brake booster. And this part comes in the kit. You just screw them together. I think they say you can put some Teflon seal on there or something, but I screwed it in there and did a vacuum check, and it's not leaking. Even if it leaked just a smidge, it would never be noticeable, but I would put sealant on there if I noticed a little bit of a leak. So this is going to get plumbed right in here, cut the vacuum line to length, and what this will do is anytime you let off the throttle, it creates high vacuum in the engine. That high vacuum will pop open the blow-off valve and release the pressure in the intake system, because clearly it's not needed if you let off the throttle. So let's finish this up. All right, and there it is, routed upwards instead of down. You wouldn't want to go down because the exhaust is right down there, especially if you have headers. And the nice fitting that A&A provides looks factory really, and another piece of the kit complete. It's time to go ahead and put in the new fuel injectors. I opted for the 80 pounders because I'm going to use at least some E85 in my mixture for many properties we can talk about later. Got the instructions out. Generally, fuel injectors are usually pretty easy to change. I blew everything out with an air hose really good, because when you pop the injectors out, and I see some more dirt there. I'm going to blow some more, but you don't want any dirt getting in the engine if you can help it. So use compressed air and blow everything out on both sides as best as you can before you start taking anything apart. Next step's going to be to open up the Schrader valve here and drain the gasoline out, so that when I remove the connection, if I have to, I'm not sure if I do or not. Next step is to remove the fuel line from the rail. This piece comes off first. It's just a safety lock. And then what you need is, if you haven't already got one of these are pretty cheap. I think this one is by Lyle, and it's got all the different fuel line fittings. Find the correct one for this hose, and then you essentially put it on and compress while you pull out on the hose. Generally pretty simple. These gray clips that get seated in the fuel rail, I like to just put a cutoff snips underneath them. We're not cutting them off, but we're getting underneath each edge and just kind of prying up. And they pop out of the hole. For the injectors, to get them off, all you have to do is depress this metal ring here and pull up at the same time. Here's a better view. Once you do that, it spreads it out, and just pop it off. Really simple. Once you get all the injectors removed from their harness and the harness itself removed from the rail, there's 4 bolts that hold the harness to the manifold. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now the harness and the fuel rails with the injectors should just pop out with a little bit of careful prying evenly all the way around. And what we're going to do is, I've got a nice clean spot here. The last thing you want is any dirt whatsoever anywhere near your rail, your injectors. If you get any dirt or gunk inside the open rail, that's bad news. So I've got a nice and clean spot here ready to go, where I'm going to swap the new injectors onto the rail. Okay, the fuel rail is on the clean surface. I like to take, this is the where the connection to the hose was. I like to wrap a piece of cloth around there and tape to make sure there's no dirt that can get in there whatsoever. That would be horrible. Then basically we just take these clips off of each of the injectors one at a time, and we lubricate the new injector lightly with just a teeny bit of grease and slide it back in the rail and put the clip on. Do that for all 8 of them. My injectors are being a little stubborn. They've never been off, so it did take a fair amount of effort to, once I took the clip off, to pull them loose. And so far, 2 out of 2, the little rubber O-ring has stayed inside here. So just get yourself a little pick tool. Be careful not to scratch the bore of the fuel rail, but carefully get the old rubber O-ring out because the new ones come with O-rings. Couple things. When you put these clips back on, make sure on the fuel injector, you can see there's a groove. It's the bottom groove. You got to make sure they're lined in and they snap in place. And then on the side of each injector, you can see the little metal part of the, or the plastic lip of the injector sticking through. It's really easy to miss that. A couple of mine, I had to put the clips on carefully a couple times to get them on correctly. Just a couple points to point out. And also, these caps that come with the new injectors, make sure you put them on your old injector on the inlet side and store away your old injectors in the box nice and clean, because these are good, you know, if they still were good injectors, you may need them at some point or recycle them or whatever. So make sure you put those caps on the inlet side of the injector and keep them stored in a nice safe place. Okay, line up the holes nice and neat after you grease gently each one of the O-rings and shove the fuel rail down into the holes and gently tighten back up the 4 retaining screws. The injector connectors are the correct ones, so you basically just snap them on. And you'll hear them snap. Put the wiring loom back in and connect the main fuel line. Time to mount the booster pump. This looks complicated, but I think it's pretty easy. The main plug, cut this thing off because it's for a Kenny Bell plug-and-play system for countless other vehicles. So we'll cut both of these about right here. This one here is the input from the source that goes to the Corvette fuel pump. And then this one actually goes, the one that's not fused, goes to the Corvette fuel pump. We'll show you that here in a little bit. But just to kind of give you an overview, this short wire that comes out of the booster pump is just going to get connected to a ground near the booster pump under the wheel well. Grind the paint off, use a self-tapping screw. I like to put a little grease on there to prevent corrosion. So that's the main ground. And then this long wire is ultimately, that's coiled up here, is going to get routed through the rocker panel up to the front of the vehicle. And this is going to be for the pressure switch, because the booster pump really just increases the voltage, I guess, to the stock fuel pump only when you're in boost. And I think it activates at 3 pounds of boost on up. So in normal driving, you know, that would be just a few percent of the time. That way you're not straining your fuel pump and circulating all that fuel for nothing, only when you need it. I already assembled this. It's the pressure switch here by my thumb, the connector with the vacuum fitting, a short little rubber. All this stuff comes with a kit, and then a T-fitting. And for the T-fitting, what I'm going to do, I already kind of took a look here, is connect this inline T-fitting to the boost reference hose that goes to my blow-off valve, and then I'll have this laying behind the reservoir for the clutch master cylinder, and the connector wires will go right here. So it should be out of view for the most part from just about everybody. So let's get started. We'll put it up on the lift and get the front and the left driver's side wheels off. Okay, the car's up. I'm on the driver's side rear. I think there's just 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and one more under there somewhere to get this inner shield off. 7mm. Let's pop this thing off, and I think the booster pump's going to go somewhere back here. Let's take a look. All right, we got the wheel well out from the driver's side rear. And in order to get to the harness, I guess we have to drop this aluminum cover off, which is where the fuel pump is inside here. But one extra benefit is there's got to be about a pound of dirt and crud in here. That this will make it faster because it'll be lighter when I'm done with this. Okay, getting close to buttoning up the booster pump install in the back part of the car. So on mine, which is an 03, I had to cut the farthest gray wire on the end of the plug and connect it per the instructions to the fuse side and then to the output side to the fuel pump. Mounted the booster pump to the bulkhead here with 3 screws. I put a washer behind this one because it was pulling away a little bit and wanted to make up that space so it would snug down without trying to twist the unit. I located it so my wires are down and in the farthest corner because inevitably there will probably be some moisture that gets in here, and I want it to run down here and not into the unit. So that's why I put the hole with the wires going into the unit here on the bottom left corner. I want to note I have to do some soldering of the connectors here, and one of these little deals, if you don't have one for soldering, I think I got it at like Harbor Freight or Northern Tool. It's just indispensable if you've ever tried to solder wires and hold them steady. It's got alligator clips on the end, and it's just a fantastic $5 purchase. So I'm going to finish this part up and work my way. What we'll need to do is snake the wire that goes up to the pressure switch through the rocker. We'll do that by sticking a tape measure from the front to the back. I'll tape the wire to the tape measure and run it back through the rocker so I can pull it up into the engine compartment. Okay, the pressure switch wire from the booster pump comes up the rocker, like we said, with the tape measure to get it fished through there. Fish it up into the engine bay, and then it tees into the vacuum hose from the brake booster, and I've just strapped it here with a zip tie to the back of the master cylinder reservoir for the clutch, and that part's complete. Hey guys, that does it for part 6 of the C5 Corvette A&A Vortech Supercharger install. As always, if you like the video, please remember to hit that thumbs up button and to subscribe. Thanks for watching.